need to have a conversation that if you're going to have anyone above a certain age in a position of power, whether it's the House, whether it's the Senate, whether it's vice president, whether it's president, you should have some sort of cognitive test. Like, just like you have to show your tax returns, you should have some sort of health screening so that people have faith in what you're doing. And right now, let's face it, we've got a lot of people in leadership positions that are old.
So this is what's happening on the right, okay? That was Nikki Haley talking about a cognitive test. Keep in mind, Nikki Haley worked for Donald Trump. Let that sink in. His comments were part of a conversation that is very in vogue right now. In Haley's case, it's pretty coded. Not all Republicans do it that way, but they're casting doubt on President Joe Biden's mental state. But former South Carolina Governor Nikki Haley suggested older politicians should submit to a health screening, quote, just like you have to show your tax returns. Really? Something else Donald Trump didn't do. She said it without irony. But Haley might want to be careful what she wishes for, because, again, she saw up close, more than any of us saw, of Donald Trump. Donald Trump of Tim Apple fame, who once pondered on the oranges of the Russia investigation and insisted Revolutionary War troops took over the airports. Revolutionary War troops. He wanted to nuke hurricanes. He wanted us to inject bleach to clean the lungs. For God's sakes, he was the man who stared directly at the sun during a solar eclipse and once appeared to forget how to drink from a glass of water. But let's not forget, Donald Trump actually did do what she said. He did take a test, one called the Montreal Cognitive Assessment, actually designed to detect dementia or other cognitive decline. He took it and then he bragged in TV interviews about his perfect score, but it didn't really have the intended effect. Watch.
Like a memory question, it's like you'll go person, woman, man, camera, TV. So they say, could you repeat that? So I said, yeah. So it's person, woman, man, camera, TV. Okay, that's very good. If you get it in order, you get extra points. Go back to that question and repeat them. Can you do it? And you go, person, woman, man, camera, TV. They say, that's amazing. How did you do that? I do it because I have, like, a good memory, because I'm cognitively there.
He was in charge of the nukes. Oh, my God. So this is not a segment, though, about him. Bless his heart. Or about Joe Biden. This is a segment about the anatomy of a smear being laundered by the likes of Nikki Haley. Joining our conversation, Nick Confessori, political and investigative reporter for the New York Times and MSNBC political analyst. Donnie Deutsch is still here. That's what this is, and this is how it starts. And we talk a lot about Facebook here, Nick, about sort of the end of the food chain, but this is where a smear about Joe Biden's age and losing a step starts from Nikki Haley.
Well, it's funny, Nicole. This is the arc of an attack we saw in 2020 that, in fact, was spread very effectively on Facebook, where the Trump campaign and their acolytes and their helpers would spread the idea that he was senile, not with his marbles. And the idea there was to spread the idea that he wouldn't really be in charge, that other people like AOC or Kamala Harris or socialists, people who are less popular than Joe Biden at the time, would be in charge. And that's the underlying point.
You know, Donnie, it's funny to watch Trump and to have those questions again about what he brought to the office of the presidency while he was our nation's commander-in-chief. It's freaking terrifying. But this whole vein is really, really unseemly. I mean, ageism, the sort of veiled swipes by Nikki Haley, who sees herself as sort of a polished Trumper. What do you make of it?
Yeah. First of all, I just have to go back to the Trump thing, because there are elements that we do miss. I got to tell you, I had tears coming out of my eyes. You can't believe it's real. Like, we lived through it. We got numb to it on a daily basis. But when you go back to some of the greatest hits, the ones that are kind of at least not as dangerous as some of the other ones, you can't believe it. Nikki Haley, there's a word that probably doesn't come up a lot on the show. Talk about chutzpah. I mean, to bring this up. And also ironic, the Republicans are all about freedom. We don't want anybody to tell us to have mask mandates. We don't want anybody telling us what we can and can't do. Yet we should put people with an ageist, which is no different than being racist, slant on things, and we're going to test you to see if you're up to the job. No, the people who test are the voters. And Nikki Haley's brand, to me, has really sunk. If we go back 3 or 4 years ago, Nikki Haley was seen as a real alternative to Donald Trump. And since her post, January 6th flip-flop and this kind of nonsense, talk about a spill. Nikki Haley, what's happened to you?
Yeah, and Nick, she seemed to have some moments of clarity. I think Tim Alberta did a pretty remarkable profile of him. But for her, they were always moments. They were like points of the sun. And when it was sort of right here, she saw clearly. But for everything before and everything after, she went back to carrying Trump's water. Talk about her as a sort of post-Trump political figure.
Well, look, she's been trying to tack back and forth and figure out how to run for president against Donald Trump without seeming how to run for president against Donald Trump. It's the same problem that Marco Rubio or Doug Ducey or all these other potential people in the next generation have. I actually saw this comment, it's being taken as attack directly on Biden, and perhaps it is. But I see it in a way as a subtle, kind of undermining of Donald Trump. She mentioned taxes. She mentioned an IQ test, basically, a senility test, and her her message overall was really, it's time for the next generation to take over. It's time to pass the torch, rather. So I see her as sort of trying to undermine, Trump and Biden at the same time.
If she was trying to suggest that Donald Trump take a cognitive test and turn over his taxes, she is welcome to come here and make those points anytime. Nick Compasori, Donnie Deutsch, thank you so much for spending some time with us. It wasn't exactly the Four Seasons, right? So how did Rudy Giuliani end up holding a bizarro, desperate news conference at Four Seasons Total Landscaping as the 2020 presidential election was literally being called in real time for President Joe Biden? A new documentary airing Sunday on